Welcome friends once again to our NPTEL MOOC module on health economics. This is one of the demanded modules of NPTEL, especially for the master's students, those who are heading for having specialization in health economics. This module has given a systematic directions with theoretical and mathematical approaches to address number of decision making issues. We are at this moment addressing the second unit, and it's lecture number 8, emphasizing on one of the foundational model on health economics by Grossman, who has defined demand for health in a very systematic approach. So, but how this one is actually explained without the connecting dots of the previous. Regarding the previous lecture, how we are actually thinking of Grossman because of the previous lectures. In the previous two lectures, we have discussed about utility generation from health, demand for healthcare, and trade off between, especially we emphasize on trade off between health and consumption of other goods, production function for health, lifestyle choices and health. In the later part of the previous lectures are on price responsiveness of demand curve of healthcare, where we have attached some experiences of randomized experiments of different authors. You can have a check and will be interesting. In this lecture, we will be discussing on the concept of health and Grossman's idea of health demand. There are three important goals of health demand as conceptualized in Grossman's work. Grossman is very famous because of his pioneering contribution of his work on healthcare, especially referred to health investment. We will be discussing in detail. Therefore, the first question lies with us: is health a choice? When we say this, is health that you have or something that you choose, or it is actually a mix of these two? By birth, with the virtue of the God, we usually carry a standard of health. With the successive rise in the age indicators or the age level, years of age of the person, we are discounting on number of parameters for healthcare. But it depends upon whether you have carried your health rightly, or you actually compromise with some of the things with the present need. In the present time, you might be a winner, but that does not mean you are actually encasing as an investment for the future. Therefore, these two picture is clarifying everything. Out of our time, we usually put our time maybe for home, stay in home, or for some of the riskier activities may be called driving. Yes, driving is encasing and might be landing you in a different level, but it depends on which kind of driving you are taking up. It is actually it has been observed in number of evidences that people drink and drive, or just relaxing themselves with a cup of hot coffee, then they take the drive for a long hours, and that really is cherishing for them and maybe restoring for the future. Therefore, the green cup we have highlighted with green color to highlight, just to inform that that is a good work, and your health consequences are considered to be good. Being in home, of course, it is a blissful one, but the other consequences of being in home is not discussed at this moment. We are only just trying to map that which activities are good or bad. Then a second aspect, we can clearly differentiate regarding our habits, smoking and non-smoking or no smoking behavior. One will be one of the, or the former one is actually leading it to a bad consequence. Therefore, yes, health is a choice, is considered, but subject to the kind of activities you are taking off. So, Grossman specially defined health with the notation as H, mentioned this is a choice and people can choose its level. People have ability to control their level of health, hence the successive periods are considered to be cherishing. Now we are simplifying one by one to define how Grossman have actually has actually clarified human capital. But at this moment we are just trying to mention what is called human capital without just referring Grossman's theory. We wanted to give you a theoretical background of human capital, how health is considered to be human capital. So far in economic literature, economic growth is defined to be occurring through physical capital or the investment in physical capital and its growth and its contribution toward a rise in growth rate. Then the investment on labor or the growth of labor, that has accumulated efforts on economic growth. However, most of the literature has actually neglected the idea of human capital, which is usually considered to be residual. Even in Solo's work you will see residual, Solo's residual. Even in new growth theory also you will find residuals, where directly or indirectly you will find especially in new growth theory by Romer etc., you will find for sure some relevance of education and other human capital investment. However, the foundational work we used to refer to Baker's idea, Baker's 1967. Human capital, what is this exactly? It is actually a collection of productive skills embedded in a person, which can be used to further activities which are considered to be earning generating activities, and especially in labor market, and to augment household consumption options as well, since it is continuously adding sources of earning. Hence, investment in human capital it is possible through investment in schooling or investment training during job. However, the cost of investment like direct outlays on market goods or opportunity cost of the time also counts a lot while opting for or taking an attempt for optimal investment in human capital. So, the pioneering work of Gary Becker and Ben Porath of 1967 and 67 is worth mentioning. I am sure that if you read the original reading, it will be good for you. Now, let us understand health versus other human capitals. A person's stock of knowledge affects his market and non-market productivity. Health affects the participatory time in working activity. Okay. This is what we are actually carrying forward in our other slides in terms of Grossman's idea. Human capital includes health and information about wages and potential job offers. Several authors have thought of health as human capital. However, Grossman was the first to develop a whole model of the demand for human capital. So, we will be discussing this. Another obvious question here is, why do we need a model for demand for health? Model, as we know, it is a systematic presentation based on the initial experiences or the facts, figures and the genesis of events that led to a simplified format to predict or the project for a other situations, especially for the long run. So, model presents things in a better way. Likewise, typical models in film or even in any product model etc., they used to carry certain concept, certain evidences to market the things better. Hence, model in healthcare by Grossman has given a better directions. So, when an individual demands for medical care, what he seeks is health. It seems logical to study the demand for health before demand for healthcare. So, demand for health is very important and we are going to discuss. Now, as I mentioned, Grossman's idea of health demand is presented in three important directions. He considers as roles of health. Okay, there are three important roles of health. Grossman mentioned. First one is to count here as consumption good. Health is simply helping the individual to grow in terms of consumption need. Okay. From our lecture, previous lecture, especially utility health, we have defined this function. Utility, individual utility at period t is a function of h and xt. H for health, level of health, okay, type of consumption, and other commodities other than health that may be considered as composite of goods. Xt is mentioned here, composite goods that represent everything else. Hence, when we are consuming more of our or allocating more of our resources on other commodities, obviously there will be a trade off. Okay. So, there will be a inverse relationship between the allocation of resources on H or X. And to maximize your consumption, you have to actually make a trade off. Though there are interlinkages as well in our models, there are complications for sure, but these complications are actually simplified by Grossman. How one investment is not a typical commodity, as we already mentioned. It is a kind of investment where it is actually adding further in a next generational model or in next set of time as an additional set of consumption to the consumer. Hence, there are multiplier effect as well. So, these all details are actually simplified and we are going to present it. Like we mentioned how trade off occurs between H and X. Let us start with an example here as snacks. Snacks may increase your X, okay. However, it poses some kind of challenges to health, may be considered to be XB or bad commodities in certain other period. Exercises would actually add better value. Yes, exercise is considered to be X investment or spending on X. However, it is health generating impact, and therefore we say it is G, goods, good kind of commodities. Now, we are referring to time constant within a single period. We have started with a single period utility function, through Grossman. Now, we are actually explaining time constant, how you have a limited time, you have to allocate the best. However, the consumer might not actually know it, cannot able to gauge it correctly, how the constant is actually taking the consumer to be compromising in terms of best utility. So, we will be connecting all sort of understanding to our optimal function as well. Somewhere we will be discussing what is called optimal day or optimal utility, etc. We will be discussing this. Now, let us start the constant function once again. Usually, we do it in our budget constant optimization, constant optimization function. We used to have a budget constant in our constant function, but now time is another component that has to be taken care of. Therefore, we have written here in the first point as time is how it is going to be helping the individual to optimize. We know that 24 hours we have only in total. Out of that, we are supposed to allocate on working period, then playing time, then health consumption, then and some time for leisure period, or maybe person is sick where other component cannot be actually made. This will be just minus of this theta minus Ts, okay, will be actually our productive hours. So, we will be discussing these productive hours, where a person is supposed to be working and will add more value. So, TW, as I already mentioned you, each hour spent on it produces income, which can there be used to purchase other goods, and that contributes to H and X both. Okay. So, we will be discussing again in detail. TS, however, is actually not going to contribute at all. That is basically the time for sleeping or for time consumed due to sick. A person used to take a leisure hour. In simple term, we have considered the leisure hour as sick time. Okay. Yes, that might be utility maximizing, but we are not discussing that in detail. At this moment we are only focusing to simplify our model as seek time, we are only mentioning seek time. Might be leisure time, but at this moment we are not mixing, especially in Grossman model leisure hour is not mentioned. Sleep period is also mentioned, seek time is emphasized, and that is basically a lost time. Okay. Now we are mentioning how if it is actually unproductive time, then how far this is optimally used. So let us see further. So in detail we have working time, playing time. Again, one confusion might have arisen in my previous word, that when we have said we have mentioned as playing time as x, we have already taken playing time, that means leisure time we already counted. Okay, we have taken leisure time. Hence, in this case do not be confused further, we are clearly saying that leisure time we have taken, and leisure time might be also productive. Okay, but we are only trying to, especially in Grossman model, lost time is emphasized, which is unproductive. So that is basically sick time. An individual used to have these hours for sure in their daily functioning. So here do not be confused again. So this is clearly contrasting. All three, as I already mentioned, all three are different than this. Okay. So let's simplify again. Now we are going to differentiate between H and X once again. H stands for health related consumption, X stands for other, a composite goods that will be other than health. X is a flow variable created and consumed each period, where H is actually a stock variable, accumulates and deteriorates from period to period. There are different interpretations as well. Level of H reflects the complete history of past inputs and decisions pertaining to health. By contrast, enjoyment from today's other good is forgotten by tomorrow, does not contribute to tomorrow's X. In any given period T, that is time, before individual has allocated any time on or money on X, starts out at 0. However, if we are referring to H investment or H spending, we are actually comparing with T minus 1 period, because health is not just carried in at 0 period, it has a time lag and that has to be counted. Individuals treat H minus 1 or H T minus 1 as a given during period T, since she cannot go back into past and change her history of health decisions which determine as T minus 1. Okay, so okay, in this slide we have discussed in terms of consumption. Now we are discussing in terms of production. For both H and X, there are two distinct categories of inputs. Okay, in order to produce X and in order to produce H. So inputs are market goods and personal time. Time inputs are defined in previous slides also. Now what is called market inputs? Basically M, if you are taking short note for M, M stands for market input for health, such as healthcare, exercises, equipment, etc. Whereas if you are counting other goods and its market inputs, there we have used as J term, like video games, etc. These are considered to be other goods. Now here it looks, our production function looks like this. Production function for X and H and production function for X at period T. When we are actually counting the market time for health as an input and market time for other goods as an input, so we have to count these for sure, H T minus 1, whereas a time for health for sure, but T minus 1 how much health you are carrying, okay, as an input to be more productive in period T, okay, T minus 1 counts a lot. However, in this case it is not required, T minus 1 is not required, you can start with for production you can simply start with X 0 period as well. Okay. So this is the difference. M we have already discussed, ZT we have discussed already. Okay. However, it is also again mentioned. Now, we need to also redefine our market budget constant, since we have considered t minus 1 period and we have also included time as a constant function. Individual cannot spend more than earning. Okay. If W is wage rate, that is wage rate we are mentioning is rupee per unit of time. So, TWT, that is capital T W, is actually total time for working. Then total income out of the total time or working time we have taken this as the notation, and per unit hour or unit of time is deriving wage rate of W. Hence, my total income would be of course of this amount. YT is equal to W times TW. In any period, individual can spend her income on two items, which we already said, either on health or in other goods. Okay. So, Grossman model does not specify how wages or W are determined. So, regarding market equilibrium and set off etc., how the inputs market are defining whether W is efficient enough or not, they are not discussed in Grossman model. But presumably the individual's education and other factors determine this wage rate which individual derives. Okay. Now, the market budget constant is mentioned here. We know that total income is over here mentioned as this YT, and how it is equalized, it is basically with wage rate for unit of time per hour spent, and the total income derived out of wage rate is TW times wage rate. So, total income is derived. How it is allocated? Allocated either on healthcare products or on other goods. Okay. So, and its market price we have also mentioned, P for price, M for the healthcare one, and G for other goods. P is its respective price. That will be actually defining the budget constant function. When nothing is actually saved for the future, then it is quite obvious that this does not hold, this will be simply equalized. This is what we have mentioned in the next equation. So, this is all about how a person allocates its budget on different products in different time period. Okay. And especially at this moment in the first rule we have not counted different time period, we have only discussed about T, how income is allocated. But actually we have also mentioned how T minus 1 for healthcare matters, so far as HT is concerned, okay, in terms of production. So, but the first rule is on in terms of consumption, hence we have only counted the budget function at that particular period. Okay. Now, in the second rule we are emphasizing on production, productive time, how health is an input to the production of productive time. If a person is already healthy and enough to have very little sick time, then additional improvements in health yield little additional productive time. If a person is very unhealthy, even small improvement in health can yield substantial decrease in sick time. So, what is the meaning of it? We say that when a person is already healthy enough to have already healthy enough to have very little sick time, then additional improvement in health yield little additional improvement in productive time. Basically, when a person is actually healthy and continuing with that time allocation for his work, and even if little sick, still every additional time which the person is allocating is hardly adding any extra productive hours or time. Whereas the person is getting unhealthy, whenever getting little healthy time, the productivity increases substantially. Okay. Hence, every small improvement in health can yield substantial decrease in sick time. So, sick time versus productive time is emphasized in the second rule. The third we will discuss in the next lecture, but second this one let me clarify a bit, otherwise we can carry forward to the next lecture. I will just show it what are there in my component, what are there. 3 rules of etc., optimal day, production possibility frontier, standard model, Grossman model etc. All details are there. You might get a disconnection if I just continue and break it in between. I think I will have to leave it to the next class after this slide. So, I will be emphasizing this first. I will just give you the basic background. We have already discussed this. Now, I will once again emphasize that how productive time and sick time are defined. Okay. We know that when person have sick time, of course, it will be out of your total hours. We have to subtract the productive hours. Hence, TP hours productive hours, TS stands for sick time. So, these three, as I already mentioned in the previous slides, in the preceding slides, it is all about productive hours. So, the 24-hour is here. Out of that, rest are left with our productive hours. And it is also evidential in the healthcare production function for the productive time etc. There are diminishing marginal returns to productive time as well from health, and how this works we are going to emphasize. I will clarify this slide, then we will carry forward to the next lecture. We will start from this lecture in the next one. What is sick time and productive time? We know that. So, on the one axis vertical axis we have discussed at TS, and this is HT, and minimum health a person must be carrying. Therefore, Grossman mentioned that with a caption that illness avoidance curve, how it works, and then even clearly emphasize what is called economic definition of death. The individual, what is this? The individual has no productive time left and cannot generate any more health. That is basically called economic definition of death. That does indicate that the person remains at the minimum of health. Once the minimum benchmark level of health is attained, if that is not attended, the person is considered to be dead. At that below to that level the person cannot function and cannot add any productive hours. So, the purpose of reducing sick time is to have more productive time for producing more H and X. Okay. So, more the productive hours we have, more the health and even X products are generated. Hence, when out of the 24 hours we have made a rigidity line here, the line starts from here, there is an inverse relationship between health and sick time. Inverse function is eventual only because we have to reserve a minimum level of health, and once out of 24 hours once your sick time actually reduces, okay, the rest of the time will be actually allocated for health, and that is considered to be more productive. Alright. Hence, the relationship between these two, it is not typically starts from this place or from 0, because health minimum cannot be at 0 level, it has to be a minimum level. Hence, our productive hour starts from a minimum level, okay, and it is downward sloping. So, accordingly we will be clarifying how our production function looks like, and how Grossman defined the important 3 roles, and accordingly we will also define what is called optimal day, even we will define through the production possibility frontier etc. I think it is better to revisit once again in our next lecture. I will start with the sick time versus productive time from the next lecture. Here I have to stop, and my next lecture I am expecting you to attend for the next lecture. Thank you.